Welcome to According to Sam, folks. This is episode 414. Thank you for joining me. Happy Monday. Hope you guys had a good weekend. I had planned, I was going to get back into, so that's what I do on this podcast. It's mostly politics. For months now, I've been doing religion, talking about, first Jewish history, and then we started getting into Christian history. I thought that I was going to get back into some politics today, which I want to. I will definitely be getting back into politics on Friday because this is an election year. There's a lot going on, and there's some things that I want to cover. But it's crazy. I was thinking that they used to say when I was a kid that you should never talk. Those were the two topics that you should never talk about in polite society: religion and politics. And I talk about both of them on this podcast. Both of those subjects are very important to me. And I talk about, the difficult conversations, particularly with religion and what we've been talking about, the difficult conversations that, have been taboo to talk about, that a lot of people don't talk about. Those are the conversations I talk about. That's what we do on According to Sam. We talk about the things that are difficult conversations, the taboo conversations. We talk about religion. We talk about politics. And we're going to be talking about religion more today. Although I thought that we were going to be able to get into some politics today. Something happened over the weekend, which I have to cover. And it gives me some opportunity to tie up some loose ends in what we were talking about in the last podcast, talking about, heresy, Irenaeus's work against heresy, and how Irenaeus said that, we need to establish a preeminent authority in the city of Rome, the capital of Rome, which was the capital of the empire when Irenaeus wrote that. Irenaeus, again, could have never foreseen that the capital of the Roman Empire was going to move from the city of Rome to Constantinople. As a matter of fact, that's what when the Visigoths stormed into Rome and sacked Rome for the first time in the late 5th century, it was around 470 is when Alaric and the Visigoths stormed, and it was such a monumental moment because no one could have ever envisioned that the eternal city would fall. That's why Augustine wrote City of God. He had to respond to this, the fact that the city had just fell to the Visigoths. So in 300 years before that, when Irenaeus is writing against heresies, and he's writing this, and at the end of Pax Romana, and we say it was the end of Pax Romana, when we look at historians say the election of Commodus is the end of Pax Romana. But Irenaeus and the people living at that time, they didn't know it was the end of Pax Romana. They thought that the good times and the peace times and all that was just going to continue forever. They had no idea that the crisis of the 3rd century was just 50 years away. I don't know if I'm making sense, but I'm trying to make sense. And something happened over this weekend that gives me some opportunity to try again to make more sense and to explain what I'm talking about. And to get us started on today's podcast, we're going to start with the passage from the Bible. This is from Matthew chapter 10. And these are the words of Jesus. He's being quoted by Matthew. This would be, if you had an old Bible, this would be red letter because it's coming from the mouth of Jesus. And Jesus says, "Do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to earth." What? You're the Prince of Peace. What do you mean? Of course you came to bring peace to earth, right? No, Jesus says, no, do not suppose that I have come to bring peace on earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I've come to turn, and then you can see that this is a quote within a quote. Why is this a quote within a quote? Because Jesus is actually quoting something that the prophet Micah said centuries before, where Micah says, do not trust a neighbor, put no confidence in a friend, even with the woman who lies in your embrace. Guard your words, the words of your lips. For a son dishonors his father, a daughter rises up against her mother. This is from Micah, the prophet Micah. A daughter-in-law against mother-in-law. A man's enemies are the members of his own household. So Jesus, when he says this, when he's saying this in, the first century, as Matthew is quoting him, Jesus is actually quoting from Micah. Do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to earth, because I have not come to bring peace. I've come to bring a sword. For I've come to turn man against father, daughter against mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies, just like Micah says, a man's enemies will be the members of his own household. Anyone who loves their father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves their son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Whoever does not take up their cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds their life will lose it. Whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. That's what Jesus says, that I'm going to divide people, that people are going to be divided because of me, is what he is saying. All right. So what happened this weekend that is notable that we need to talk about? Well, here's a clip about what happened this weekend. Take a listen.
Mormons are not Christians, according to the U.S. federal government. The Department of Defense revising its list of religious codes, no longer designating the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints as Christians. The Pentagon says the change is meant to help chaplains. Mormons, though, and Utah senators are now demanding that the military rectify that change. President Trump's save.
All right. So when she says that senators are demanding that the Pentagon rectify that, she's talking about Mike Lee, namely, because Mike Lee, when he saw this list, and Mike Lee is one of the two senators from the state of Utah who is Mormon, and this list is a revised list that came from the Pentagon, and you can see that it's got all these different religious faiths that the Pentagon is going to start recognizing now: agnostic, Baha'i, Buddhism, and then all of these with the hyphen are considered Christian. Christian Assembly of God, Christian hyphen Baptist, Christian hyphen Brethren, and then you can see that right below Christian hyphen Seventh-day Adventist, you have Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So Mike Lee sees this and he's like, well, why aren't Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints considered with the hyphen Christians? And we're not considered Christians. And this was his post, which set off. If you go to X right now, my entire timeline is dealing with this question of Mormons being Christians, or if Mormons are not Christians, and why Mormons were kept off this list or not included as Christians. And it's an overall debate. And again, this gives me the opportunity to get back into the conversation that we've been talking about, because we've been talking about, the idea that there's one universal church, and that anyone who is not in that same line of the, universal Catholic Church, that they're deviated from the faith and are no longer members of the church. This is something that many Catholics believe this. I explained this a few podcasts ago. Mormons believe this, which is the irony in this, because now the Mormons are saying we're being attacked. You're excluding us, So again, this gives me the opportunity to get back into this talk about heresies, because we need to understand what heresies are. This is what is heresy? when we start talking about Irenaeus in 180 writing this work against heresies, which becomes the foundation for what becomes the papal system, and establishing the authority for the church in Rome, is against heresies. And why Irenaeus is writing this in 180 AD. What's forcing him? Well, what's forcing him, we've already talked about this, is all of these different heresies that were taking place in the second centuries. And all of these different groups called themselves Christians, much like Mormons call themselves Christians. So let's talk about what heresy is first, and we'll talk more about the similarities to Mormonism and some of these other heresies that were going on in the first century. This is the Wikipedia page. Heresy is any belief or theory that is strongly at variance, different. A variance is different. Heresy is any belief or theory that is strongly at variance with established beliefs or customs, particularly the accepted beliefs or religious law of a religious organization. A heretic is a proponent of heresy. And heresy is not only in Judaism. Actually, when Christianity first started to spread in Jerusalem, it was considered a Jewish heresy. Many Jews who did not become Christians and did not accept Christianity considered the name Christian is a derogatory term that was attributed to this group of Christ followers, and it was considered heretical. Matter of fact, there were groups that, like the group that ended up, going to the, that authored the Dead Sea Scrolls, and they were a different sects. They had all of these different sects in Judaism even before Christianity branched off. But Christianity itself was considered a Jewish heresy. Now, so heresy is something that is strongly at variance of the established beliefs and customs of a particular set of beliefs of religious law. So let's look at the definition. Here. And the definition: belief or opinion contrary, again, variance, contrary, different. Belief or opinion contrary to orthodox religious, especially Christian doctrine. That anything that is contrary, anything that is a variance, okay? I got the etymology here too. Let's go over that. The etymology of heresy. Heresy, doctrine or opinion at variance, there's that word variance again, with established standards. And then it says right here, the Latin word is from Greek, heresies. So it's a Greek word. Latin comes from the Greek, heresies, and it means a taking or choosing for oneself, a choice, a means of taking, a deliberate plan, purpose, philosophical sect, school, take. There it is again. Take, to seize, heresy. That's the etymology. So there were all of these, from the beginning. This first heresy here is in the first century, is mentioned in the Bible. You can see here, it says here, Nicholism. Let me just read this for you. Nicholism is a heresy that was identified by the apostles in the first century. It is written about in the book of Revelation. It says what Nicholism is a sect traditionally believed to be founded by Nicholas of Antioch. And one of the 7 deacons described so he was one of the deacons in Antioch, and one of the 7 deacons who is described in Acts 6, who believed that sexual indulgence was necessary for salvation, and they ate food sacrificed to idols. They condemned the book. They're condemned in the book of Revelation. So anyone who believes this is what Paul is saying in Galatians. where he says, if anybody teaches another gospel besides the one that I have taught you, that we have taught you, is what he says, the apostles have taught you, if they come teaching a variant gospel, something that is contrary to Orthodox belief, let them be anathema. It's heresy. So in the first century, you had heresy. We talked in the beginning of the second century, we talked in the last podcast about Simon Magus, Simon the sorcerer. And he is to believe to be the founder of the Gnostics. Gnostic just means knowledge. So these sects started, this is again, why I'm explaining to you people why Irenaeus, in writing against heresies, he's writing mostly, you can see it right here. It says, in Against Heresies, Irenaeus identifies and describes several schools of Gnosticism, other schools of Christian thought whose belief he rejected as heresy. Okay. So Gnosticism wasn't just one religion. What you can see here, that all of these other religions kind of expanded away from Gnosticism, which Simon the sorcerer is said to have started Gnosticism. Where does this start? This starts in Alexandria in North Africa. It starts and it spreads into Antioch. That's what you have to understand that those two cities, Alexandria, we talked about this when we were talking about the Greeks and getting into the Maccabean revolt, that Ptolemy, after Alexander the Great died, Ptolemy basically became the ruler of North Africa. He steals Alexander's body, brings it back, and creates this massive city of Alexandria. And then Seleucus is the founder of the Seleucid Empire, and they create a city to rival Alexandria in Syria, which was Antioch. Antiochus. Antioch comes from Antiochus. So those were the two great cities. And when Christianity started to spread in the East, again, this is very important, because Christianity spread it in the East, but the heresy also started to spread in the East. And as Christianity is spreading into North Africa and into Syria, also the heresy is spreading into North Africa. That's why Irenaeus is saying that we need to establish the authority in Rome, because the heresy had not spread into Rome the way it was in Alexandria and Antioch. So you see all these Gnostic, so the Gnostic heresy starts with Simon Magus, and then it spreads off to all of these other different Gnostic sects. When people talk about gospels that were not included in the canon, or what about the gospel of what are some of these? The Gospel of Thomas, and the Gospel of Thomas wasn't written by Thomas. The Gospel of Thomas was written by Gnostics. There's a whole sect of epistles that were written by Gnostics that were not canonized because they were written by heretics. So this heresy was infesting all of. It was like a cancer that was spreading, and it started in the East, and it hadn't yet spread to the West. And that's why, and Rome was the capital. That's why Irenaeus says we need to establish authority in the capital, in the West, in the city of Rome. It makes nothing but sense. And that's why he writes this work against heresy, because all of these different heretical movements, not only the Gnostic movements, we looked at other ones, Marcionism, modalism, all these other different, all of these groups called themselves Christians, just like the Mormons. But their beliefs were at variance, contrary. They deviated from the Orthodox faith that the apostles taught. It wasn't the same beliefs. So it doesn't matter that they were calling themselves Christians. They had beliefs that were variant, that were contrary to the Orthodox beliefs that the early Christians had. That's why it was important for Irenaeus to establish this authority. This is, again, 150 years before the Nicene Council, before the Council of Nicaea, before a creed is established and has the backing by the empire. Because that's the important part. This is Michael Knowles, and on his show today, he talked about what was going on with this controversy with the Pentagon putting out this revised list of religions and not including the Mormons with the Christians. I want you to take a listen to what he says.
Because the Pentagon released a new list of how they're categorizing religions in the military. And this is not a list of the religions that are permitted in the military. You're permitted to have any religious beliefs you want in the military. This is not a list of who gets access to special services or anything like that. It's just a way of classifying. The military categorizes and classifies everything. It's a way of classifying the religions of the members of the armed services. And they've done a major rehaul. We'll get to what they took out in a second. But they're in big trouble because members of LDS, Mormons, are accusing the military of being unfair to them. And here's why. Here are the formal religions now listed for the U.S. military. Agnostic, Baha'i faith, Buddhism, and then this litany of Christian flavors. So it's Christian-Assemblies of God, Christian-Baptist, Christian-Brethren, Catholic, Church of Christ, Church of God, Church of the...
Now, in the first century, if there was a Pentagon and the Pentagon was putting out a list like this about religions and Christians, it would have been Christian-Simonism. Simonons. It would have been Christian-modalists, Christian-Marcionism, Christian- all of these different sects, because all of these different sects were calling themselves Christian. And all of these different sects today are calling themselves Christian. But are they all Christian? Or are some of them heretical? Do some of them believe things that are contrary, variant to the Orthodox beliefs established by the apostles? So, I mean, and the point that I'm trying to make too is that you had different denominations of Christianity, sects that were heretical in the first century, and this definitely in the second century, all the way up to now we're in the 21st century, and you have many different sects of Christianity that are heretical. But what Irenaeus and others sought to do was to eliminate these heresies and get rid of them and establish a authority and a creed and a structure that kept the heresy at bay. They didn't do that. They did it for a while, but eventually after the, Protestant Reformation, it went back to the way that it was in the first century because it doesn't have anything to do with the structure and all this stuff. The problem is human nature. The problem is human nature, but we'll get there.
Accusing the military of being unfair to them. And here's why. Here are the formal religions now listed for the U.S. military. Agnostic, Baha'i faith, Buddhism, and then this litany of Christian flavors. So it's Christian-Assemblies of God, Christian-Baptist, Christian-Brethren, Catholic, Church of Christ, Church of God, Church of the Nazarene, Episcopal Anglican, Evangelical, Jehovah's Witnesses, Lutheran, Methodist, non-denominational, Orthodox, Other, Pentecostal, Presbyterian, Quaker, Reformed, Scientist, Seventh-day Adventist. And then that's the end of the list of Christian religions. Next one on the list, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormons, LDS.
Then Hindu.
So the Mormons show up,
Islam,
not categorized as a Christian religion, followed by Hindu, Islam, Judaism, no religion, other religions, and Sikh. And the LDS come out and they say, why are you not listing us as Christian?
They actually make a good point, the LDS, and he's going to make that point here. I mean, honestly, if you're going to tell me that Jehovah's Witnesses, that they're Christian, that they don't deviate from Orthodox. I mean, they don't even believe that Jesus died on a cross. Jehovah's Witnesses, but actually, the LDS Church makes a good case. Hey, why can they? And that's what the point that Knowles is getting ready to make here.
And the LDS come out and they say, why are you not listing us as Christian. And we know all of the reasons for which LDS would not be listed as Christian. But the chief reason is that LDS does not hold to Trinitarian theology. So the centerpiece of the Nicene Creed of all of historical Christianity, LDS does not hold to.
So what Knowles is talking about, like I told you, that the Nicene Creed comes from the Council of Nicaea. And in 325, this is the council that Constantine calls after he unites the empire unites the empire after it had been broken up and fighting had been going on and all these other problems that the empire had been having for throughout the entire 3rd century. He finally unites the empire again in 324. He calls the Council of Nicaea to deal with the Arian controversy. He had embraced Christianity. The Christianity is starting to become an imperial religion at this time, and the bishops got together to establish a creed. This is a creed, and they argued this point because the biggest differences at this time were the Arians and the Orthodox Christians, and Athanasius argued for the Orthodox point of view, which is the Trinity. Not only the Trinity, the belief that Jesus is God, that in Arianism, when Arian loses that debate in the Council of Nicaea, they established the Nicene Creed. This is the first creed to establish some guardrails so people who can't just believe anything and call yourself Christian. There needed to be some guardrails. People can't just believe that, that sexual indulgence is necessary for salvation. That's not Christian. Sorry. The belief that Jesus and Lucifer are brothers is not Christian. Sorry. There needed to be some guardrails. So that's what the Council of Nicaea set. And it was the first, established the first creed to set these guardrails against heresy. The funny thing about it is that after the Nicene Council, Arianism didn't go away. It was still very prominent, even in the court in Constantinople. Many high-ranking nobles and in the Byzantine Empire at that time continue believing in Arianism, but they had established the creed, and that's what Knowles is talking about, that the creed is, there's many reasons. He says there's many reasons Mormons aren't Christian. Let me say it.
LDS does not hold to Trinitarian theology. So the centerpiece of the Nicene Creed of all of historical Christianity, LDS does not hold to. So you say, okay, I guess it's fair that it's not listed as Christianity. But I have to come out here in defense of the Mormons, of the LDS, because if Trinitarian theology is the criterion, the essential criterion, the crucial criterion, to use a pun, for Christianity, why are the Jehovah's Witnesses listed as Christian? Why are the Pentecostals, at the very least the Oneness Pentecostals, who deny the Trinity, why are they listed as Christian? Why are the Christian Scientists who deny the Trinity? Why are they listed as Christian? Why are some of the Quakers? Many Quakers believe in the Trinity, but some do not. And it's not an essential matter of the Quaker religion. So I have to say here, obviously I'm not changing my views on Christianity, I'm not changing my views about the Trinity or the essential aspects of the creed, but it does seem to me that the Mormons are being unfairly singled out here. If you're going to say the essential criterion is Trinitarian theology, fair enough. But then why did the J-Dubs get a pass? The Jehovah's Witnesses.
He's right.
Christian Scientists.
He's right.
A very thoughtful guy, great follow on Twitter, Hadar Hazoni, responded when I asked this question and said, well, maybe it's because the Mormons have added scripture. So they have a new, forget about the differing views of who Christ is and who God the Father is. And
it's more than that.
Obviously,
it's more than that. It's a lot. It's a lot. So, I mean, the fact that they reject the Nicene Creed and the Trinity, like you said, I mean, if that's all it is, then yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people who shouldn't be on this list. But there's a lot of these people who are included Christian that are, completely heretical. Completely heretical. Presbyterians, they're ordaining lesbian women priests. What is this? There's all kinds of heresy in Christian Protestantism. There's heresy in Catholicism, people. You want to talk about some of this stuff in from Vatican II, which is at variance, which is contrary to Orthodox belief. There's heresy. There's heresy in the Catholic Church. There's heresy in Christianity, in Protestant Christianity. There's heresy everywhere. There was heresy in the first century. There's heresy in the 21st century. There's heresy because heresy is a product of human nature. And Jesus knew that there was going to be heresy. He predicted it. We have plenty of time, and we're going to get into, this was the passage that I mentioned a few podcasts ago where Jesus he's talking about heresy here. And I'm going to show you that. This is in Matthew. But before we get there, I want to talk about this hypocrisy of Mormons clutching their pearls saying, oh, we're being attacked. We're being excluded. No, you exclude yourselves. You exclude yourself. This comes directly from Joseph Smith, your founder, your prophet. He says this is from the BYU, Brigham Young University's own website. And it says, we'll start here. Let's read this. In 1843, Levi Richards reported that Joseph Smith says none of them were right. Talking about other Christian religions. They're talking about other Christian faiths, other Christian denominations, Catholics, other Protestants. None of them were right. That they were all wrong and that the everlasting covenant had been broken. Joseph's last known account, recorded by Alexander Niebuhr in his 1844 journal, emphasized the same point. They are not my people. They are not my people. These other religions that now Mike Lee is crying, oh, we're not included. Joseph Smith said they're not my people, that these other Christian faiths and other Christian denominations, Protestants, Catholics, they're not my people, is what Joseph Smith says. They're not my people. They have gone astray. There is none that doeth good, not one. None of them do good. None of these other Christian denominations do good, not one. But this is my beloved son, hearken him. Wow, that comes directly. That's what the voice from heaven on Mount Transfiguration says to Jesus, and Joseph Smith is saying that about himself. This is my beloved son, hearken him. Second, in particular, errors of doctrine have been introduced into the belief of the people. They teach for doctrines that commandments of men. So basically, what Joseph Smith is saying here is that all of those other Christian faiths are not my brothers. They're not joined with us, that we're different from them. We're the same thing that Muhammad says. Same people were starting to relate Mormonism with Islam, and the parallels are there because this is the exact same thing that Muhammad said, that none of those religions are right. I'm the prophet. I came with the new revelation. I'm telling you what's right. None of them are right. So to now act like, oh my God, clutching pearls, that they're excluding us. You exclude yourself. You said that. I mean, this is what you say. I played the clip of Allie Beth Stuckey interviewing a Mormon apologist a few weeks ago, and he says, no, if you're not in the Mormon church, you're not Christian. Not Christians. It's not Christians saying that Mormons aren't Christian. It's Mormons saying that if you're not in the Mormon church, then you're not Christian. All of these other faiths. You're the one to exclude yourself. Joseph Smith excluded you.
What are the Latter-day Saints ordinances that are required for us to have the fullness of the relationship with God? Because there are a lot of Christians who are not LDS who have done exactly what you said. They follow Christ. They are repented. They've baptized. They're filled with the Holy Spirit.
All that.
But according to what you just said, they don't have the fullness of the ordinances. So they don't have a fullness of a relationship with God, according to your theology, I think.
Well, in our theology, that would have to be, all of the ordinances have to be done through the priesthood. So I can't.
So what are the ordinances that is required for someone to have the fullness of the
He just told you it goes through the priesthood,
So
their priesthood.
Our article of faith, our fourth article of faith says the first principles and ordinances of the gospel are first, faith in the Lord Jesus Christ; second, repentance; third, baptism by immersion for the remission of sins, like Peter said; fourth, the gift of the Holy Ghost by the laying on of hands. I may have misquoted a little bit there, but it's essentially that, right? So these are the things that we do that bring us into a relationship with Jesus Christ. Now, these are what we would refer to as the ordinances of salvation. These are the things that basically get us out of this mess. Now, within the Christian world, there's sort of this notion of salvation versus sanctification, right? That sanctification is something that happens over time, if I'm not mistaken, or at least some
By
traditions
Christian
do.
world, you're talking about my world.
Yeah,
I love that part. I love
when
when
I'm
Ali
talking about
says
the
that.
Christian world,
I love when Ali
creedal
says
Christian
that.
world.
By Christian world, you mean because you're the one that are excluding yourselves. That's why they're laughing there, because he says in the Christian world. Okay, so which is it, Mike Lee? Which is it? Are you guys part of the Christian world, or are you not part of the Christian world? Because what you have here is a Christian apologist in front, or a Mormon apologist in front of Ali Beth Stuckey, and he's distinguishing himself from the Christian world. What is that? What is that, Mike Lee? Why is he distinguishing himself from the broader Christian world? And that's why Ali Beth Stuckey says, that by Christian world, you mean my world, which is hilarious.
It's something that happens over time, if I'm not mistaken, or at least some
By
traditions
Christian
do.
world, you're talking about my world.
Yeah, well, I mean, when I'm talking about the Christian world, I'm talking
love
about the
that.
creedal Christian world.
Okay.
Let's put it that way, because
The
I would
creedal.
consider myself a
Listen,
Christian, just not a.
Listen what he's saying. The distinction that he's making is the creedal. That's the distinction that Joseph Smith's making here. He says, they're not my people. They're not my people. None of them are right. The creed is not right. The creed that was established in 325, the Nicene Creed, that's not right. And that's what he's saying. That when I distinguish myself from the broader Christian community, I'm talking about the creedal Christian community, the Christian community that believes in the creed. That's what he says.
By Christian world, you're talking about my world.
Yeah, well, I mean, when I'm talking about the Christian world, I'm talking about the creedal Christian world.
Okay.
Let's put it that way, because I would consider myself a Christian, just not a creedal Christian, and that's the way that Latter-day Saints tend to view themselves. So yes, I would say that this already is something within Christian thought, that after someone has been saved, that there is a process of sanctification that people go throughout their lives to be made more perfect, right? To become what God wants them to be, right? And so we would have those. We actually have ordinances, and this is what our ordinances that are in the temple are about. They're sort of like the second half, right? And these are things such as the endowment is something that we
Money.
have. We have the celestial marriage, where people can be sealed to their families for eternity, and these are things that help us to reach the fullness of our potential.
Not only eternity, they're going to be I'm going to show you that here in a moment. But yeah, if you don't have the money to pay the endowments that he's talking about, you're not going to be saved. You can't go into the temple. That's part of it.
We have the celestial marriage, where people can be sealed to their families for eternity, and these are things that help.
What
us
if you
to
have
reach
multiple
the fullness.
wives? What if you have multiple wives? And sisters, right? You're going to be sealed to all of them for eternity?
is something that we have. We have the celestial marriage, where people can be sealed to their families for eternity, and these are things that help us to reach the fullness of our potential in Christ. Is the way we would view it.
Okay, so everything that you listed before, like the 5 things that you must do to be saved, are all things that happen in a Baptist church, but you're not Baptist. So, like, what is the distinction there? Because according to you, like, I'm a Baptist, and I've done all of those things, and yet I won't go to the fullness, the highest celestial kingdom, and have that relationship with God if I don't enter the LDS Church.
So I would say that the idea here is priesthood authority.
Priesthood authority. So what is this highest celestial realm in Mormonism that you don't get to achieve if you're not Mormonism? What are they talking about here? Well, take a listen to this clip. These are Mormons that are on their mission 2 by 2. You see them, and they're being confronted by a Christian. Take a listen. This is the highest level of actualization, I guess. We'll call it actualization. Highest level of spiritual. It's not even spiritual. It's completely physical too, because they believe you get your own physical planet. Take a listen to this.
Oh, do you believe you're going to become a god one day?
Yeah.
Why?
It is in the scriptures and the prophets have told us.
Do you believe that you are going to become a god one day? Is what this man asked this Mormon that is on his mission, this Mormon missionary. Do you believe you are going to become a god one day? That's what he says.
Oh, do you believe you're going to become a god one day?
Yeah.
Why?
It is in the scriptures and the prophets have told us. It's all throughout the scriptures.
Where?
It's not throughout the scriptures. That's a lie.
If you really want to know, I guess you could search the scriptures yourselves.
The Bible actually says in Isaiah 43:10, "Before me there was no God formed, neither shall there be after me. I am the first and I'm the last. Besides me there is no God."
Listen to what he says after this.
Joseph taught that there were gods before God, and you could become one day.
So he's quoting Isaiah, where God, through the prophet Isaiah, says, "There's no God after me. There's no God before me. There's only one God. I'm the only God." He's quoting Isaiah, and he's telling him that Joseph Smith. This is what this guy's talking about. This Mormon apologist that is talking to Allie Beth Stuckey when he's talking about not being able to reach the full actualization of what it means to be a Christian. The Christian, non-creedal Christian is what he believes, means that you're going to become a god. You're going to become your own god, and you're going to have your own planet. This is Mormon doctrine. This is what this guy's being confronted with here. And do you believe you're going to be your own god? Yes, he believes that, because that's what's taught to him.
There was no God formed, neither shall there be after me. I am the first and I'm the last. Besides me there is no God. Joseph taught that there were gods before God, and you could become one day.
Yeah.
The scriptures condemn that. And you're on your mission telling people about a God and a gospel that's contrary to the scriptures.
Contrary.
Then again, the Bible has been translated multiple times.
And again, the Bible has been translated multiple times. He's basically saying that the Bible that he's quoting, Isaiah, the Bible that he's quoting is not right, that it's been corrupted. That's why we needed the new gospel, the Book of Mormon. That's why Joseph Smith, this is what Joseph Smith is saying, is that they all got it wrong. They're all wrong. That's why we needed the new revelation, just like what Muhammad said. We needed the new revelation. Muhammad wrote the Quran, and then Joseph Smith wrote the Book of Mormon, the new revelation, because the old revelation, the quotes from Isaiah, the epistles from the apostles, they're all wrong. They all got it wrong. That's what he's taught. And that you can become your own God. So anyway, let's get through this passage real quick. And this is where Jesus predicts that there's going to be heresy. And that heresy should have not surprised anyone. I mean, that's why Paul, again, in Galatians, is warning the church in Galatia not to listen to any other person that came with any other message, any other gospel, even if it's an angel, Muhammad. Even if it's an angel, Muhammad, that don't listen to them if they come with preaching another gospel. That's why Paul is warning, because Paul even knew, Jesus knew there's going to be heresy. This is the parable of the weeds, and it's in Matthew chapter 13, start at the 24th verse. And if you don't, Jesus often spoke in parables, which were figurative, not literal. All these people that talk about, well, do you take Jesus literal? Well, Jesus is talking figurative. This is what a parable is. It's not literal, it's figurative. And Jesus often used parables to make people understand his kingdom. Why? You know, the answer to that question, why? Which time do I have? Let me just briefly just break this down. It was in the news all last week. This Catholic exorcist was fired from his job as being an exorcist because he came out and he proposed what is called the transdimensional hypothesis. It's called the transdimensional hypothesis. And this is the hypothesis that the aliens that people are seeing and aliens that people are interacting with and talking to, that these are demons that are not traveling from light years away. They're traveling from other dimensions. This is what this Catholic priest who deals with demons, and that's his job, doing exorcisms and casting out demons, talking to demons. He proposed this hypothesis that is called the transdimensional hypothesis, and that these demons are actually coming from other worlds. They're not only coming from, this is something that is not only believed in Christians today. This is modern physics today. I mean, go look at what modern physics says about the nature of our reality and multiple dimensions outside of the dimensions of space-time. So this priest comes out last week and he says that these aliens are not aliens, they're demons. They're coming from not light years away, they're coming from other dimensions. So that's what Jesus is talking about when he says that my kingdom is not of this world. Not that my kingdom is on some other planet light years away on Kolob. No, my kingdom is from another dimension, from outside this world. So in Jesus trying to make people who cannot understand things that transcend space-time, then he had to use figurative language, figurative stories, and analogies, similes, and other figurative speech to make you understand something that you otherwise couldn't understand. So that's what Jesus is doing here in this parable. He did it many times in the Gospels when you read the Gospels. And it says, Jesus told them another parable. It's a story. The kingdom of heaven is like, that's a simile. It's not what the kingdom of heaven is. The kingdom of heaven is like a sower that went out to sow. The kingdom of heaven is like a man that had two sons. The kingdom of heaven is like a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while everyone was sleeping, the enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat and went away. Who is the enemy that came? So the kingdom of heaven is like a man who sowed good seed in his field, sowing good seed. And then while everyone was sleeping, an enemy. Who's this enemy? Simon the sorcerer, Simon Magnus, Muhammad, Joseph Smith. Or the enemy came. And while we were sleeping, everyone was sleeping, the enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat and went away. When the wheat sprouted and formed heads, then the weeds also appeared. The owner's servant came to him and said, "Sir, did you not sow good seed in your field? Where then did these weeds come from? You sowed good seed. Where did these tares come from? Where do these weeds come from? Because the enemy sowed them in the field while everyone was sleeping. We've been sleeping a long time. And an enemy did this," he replied. The servants asked him, "Do you want us to go and pull them up? Do you want us to go and pull them up? Do you want us to go and pull them up?" "No," the master says. "Do not. No, don't go and pull them up. Don't go and try to tear away the heresy. You're not going to get rid of it. There's going to be heresy in the first century. There's going to be heresy in the 21st century. There's going to be heresy until the day Jesus returns." The servant asked him, "Do you want me to go and pull them up?" "No," he answered, because while you're pulling up the weeds, you may uproot the wheat with them. Let them both grow together until the harvest. And at the time, I will, the harvester, master, let them both grow together until the harvest. And at that time, I will tell the harvesters, first collect the weeds and tie them in bundles to be burned, then gather the wheat to bring them in my barn. So Jesus knew that there was going to be heresy. He knew that the enemy was going to come and plant weeds, tares in his field. After he had planted good seed, the enemy was going to come and plant weeds and tares. And there's going to be that temptation to dig them up and uproot the weeds. But the master says no, because if you do that, you're going to disturb some of the wheat as well. Let them grow together. Don't have communion with them, but let them grow together. The truth is always more powerful than the lie. Hope you guys have a great week, and I'll see you on Friday.